Hey everybody, welcome to the Virgo New Moon video. This is not your average new moon. There are a lot of different things about this new moon that make it very unique and like extraordinary, right? While it's technically a new moon, it will culminate 6 months later at a full moon, which will be a lunar eclipse. And so while this moon is not technically an eclipse itself, it's new moon territory where we have the opportunity to kind of exert our will somewhat. We'll get to that a little bit later, but exert our will upon the situation more so than we are able to do during eclipse season, which is literally right around the corner, where really the hand of fate and destiny is very much more has the upper hand than anything we think we may want for ourselves, right? So this moon is in eclipse territory, all right? It will culminate in an eclipse right after this new moon. It's followed by 2 eclipses, and it's actually part of what I'm calling a new moon, blue moon, but I guess actually has a name. It's considered a black moon. And so when a blue moon is when we have 2 full moons in the same sign back to back. And usually it's because one falls at 0 degrees and then one falls 28-ish days later at 29 degrees. The second one being a blue moon. This also happens in new moons, where we'll have 2 new moons back to back in the same sign, one falling at 0 degrees, the other one falling at 29 degrees. The second one being called a black moon. I'm seeing a lot of people refer to this one as the black moon. This one's just the first new moon. The second one, and at least in my understanding, the second one, just like the second full moon is the blue moon, the second new moon is the black moon. This is the first one. So this is part of a black moon event. This is part of a new moon, blue moon event. And it also will culminate 6 months later in an eclipse. And so the next month is really paramount when it comes to this new moon energy. And then also we'll see the things that are seeded and started now culminate in a really, really big way 6 months from now during Pisces season in the spring. Now, not only is this new moon ushering us into eclipse season, ushering us into a black moon event, so a second Virgo new moon about a month from now, but it's also ushering us into this period of fate and destiny. And this moon while it's not an eclipse itself, it has a lot of aspects and symbolic manifestations tied to it that are heavily imbued with fate and destiny. So while we may feel like we are somewhat in control, we may feel like, we're setting intentions and planting seeds that are, of our own, that span from our own will as opposed to what destiny has in store for us. They're really kind of intertwined. And so the things that are being initiated right now are fated, they're destined, and I can't wait, you guys, I cannot wait to break down this chart for you. I spent perhaps a little bit too much time, a little bit too much time with the chart. It's going to be a long video. We're going to talk a lot about certain aspect patterns, particularly the yod, the finger of God aspect, which is pointing right at this moon. We're also going to talk about this other aspect pattern known as the cradle. I call it the cosmic cradle, which we also have in the sky right now. So we're going to talk extensively about those. If you have these aspect patterns in your chart, as I do, I have a yod pointing right at my midheaven, the top of my chart, pointed right at my mission, purpose, career up there in Gemini, sharing information out there in the world. The bottom of the yod is my Mercury-Pluto conjunction in the 3rd house in Scorpio, going deep. And then I have the other part of the yod over here. The other bottom corner is my Neptune in the 5th house of like passion and hobby and self-expression. And they're both pointing up at my midheaven, the finger of God pointing up at my mission and purpose. So I dove really deep into the concept of yods and the cradle aspect pattern, and we're going to get into that here. We're going to talk about the fixed star alignments, and we're going to talk about all of the different energetics that sit behind this moon. So the aspects to the moon, but then also the aspects the other planets are making to each other, because they are significant. So stay with me and let's do this. It's going to be a long video, but I promise you it'll be worth it. If you make it through to the end, I know it'll be long, but this one's going to be good. So hang in there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will hop into it. Oh yeah, so before we hop into the slides, I want to let everybody know that I launched a new temporary mini reading on my website. You guys loved, I had such a ridiculous outpour of love and appreciation for the retrograde mini reading that I did, retrograde recalibration I called it, back when all of the planets like dominoes were stationing retrograde. And I launched one of these mini readings back then, and you guys loved it. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do more of these. So I launched a mini eclipse reading. You guys can book this now. Spacing is limited, so I'm only taking a certain amount of orders. We're heading into eclipse season right after this moon. All of September will be marked by eclipses. And if you want to know how these eclipses, this eclipse story is impacting you and your chart, especially if you have mutable planets, mutable signs heavily in your chart. So this is Pisces or Virgo or Sagittarius or Gemini, that I would consider ordering this. You guys know where to find it. It's on my website. I'll link it down below. Yeah, you don't need to book anything. It's a recorded reading sent straight to you. Usually about 30 minutes. I try to make it about 30 minutes, but you guys know me, it tends to go over. It also comes with a 1-year transit report, and yeah, every chart's different. These eclipses are going to impact everybody differently, and if you want to know how they're going to impact you, book this mini reading. I know there's a typo here, okay? I didn't know until Virgo season was like on the horizon. But it's supposed to say it's a time of fate and destiny. And if you want to know how these karmic portals are aspecting your chart, book this and let's dive in. All right, yada yada yada. You know where to find it. All right. And I apologize for the fan sound in the background. I need it. It's so hot. I have an ice pack here too that I'll probably be like rubbing all over myself because I am melting. All right, so here is our thumbnail for this moon. Before I make it full screen and cover up the images, I just want to kind of, let you see it. I have Neptune square my sun natally in my chart. Music speaks very heavily to my soul, and a lot of times it's just like that one line from a song that I feel really encapsulates everything I'm trying to say here. And for this one, I have 2 of my 90s girlies here with me. Songs I have referenced before, and you will probably see me reference again, but different lines this time. Natalie Merchant and Jewel. And yeah, this is where we're at. We're going to talk a lot about the yod, the finger of God aspect. And so I love the line from Jewel's song, Hands, towards the end of the song, where it goes, we are God's eyes, we are God's hands, we are God's mind. Because this finger of God is pointing at this new moon. It's pointing at this new beginning, major new beginning that is happening for us all, regardless of if you have placements there, because we have 2 new moons happening in the sign and house in our chart that Virgo rules, and we also have eclipses falling there. The next new moon is an eclipse. The next new moon is an eclipse that we will have in a month, and then both of those new moons culminate in eclipses 6 months later. really big new beginnings. And the finger of God is pointing at this new chapter in our chart. And it is reminding us that we are all expressions. We're going to talk about this as we get into what a yod is and the symbolism and theology and numerology and like the deeper understanding of what it means beyond just a finger of God. Like a lot of astrologers like to just kind of sum it up to that. We're going to get in deep. But it really reminds us that we are all emanations of the spark of life that we see in all things. And as we live our life, as we use our hands, as we make waves within the collective consciousness, we are doing God's will, or we are doing the will of the divine, because we are all emanations of it, right? Beautiful song. All of the lyrics in that song from start to finish are so profound for this new moon, because they really speak a lot about service and they really speak a lot about purpose. And Virgo is all about being of service and having a practical purpose in the world, right? That is how we can make change. This new moon sits in a square to Uranus. It's all about radical change. And if we do not make the effort to make radical change within our lives, something unexpected and disruptive and chaotic will happen that will force some sort of radical change in our lives. We're really being asked to take some initiative right now. And then, of course, Natalie, oh, I love you. One of my favorites. Big fan. This is her song, Wonder. And it speaks of this fate and destiny that we are in the midst of. And it also, of course, mentions a cradle. And we're going to talk about this cradle aspect as we get into the chart. I'm not going to read this because I'm going to try to sing it. It's going to sound really bad. But, you know, fate and destiny are smiling down upon us right now. And we have something being seated, something being born, something sitting in a cradle that is waiting, I guess, to grow over the next 6 months and become its own person, its own entity, right? And if anything, this moon is reminding us just how capable we really are, just how able we are to make change, to be of service, to heal, to usher in the future. And this moon in this area of our life is being so heavily impacted right now by double new moons, eclipse season, and really profound transits. So let's get into it. And of course, this is Michelangelo's creation of Adam, the finger of God reaching down, pointing down, and then Adam's finger a little bit more laxed, not as gung-ho to reach out. We definitely will have to put in a little bit of effort. That is what this moon and Virgo season in general asks us to do, which is put in effort to align our lives. All right. So this moon sits in a conjunction to the royal fixed star Regulus. This is the heart of the lion. We will get into this a little bit later in the video. It also sits in alignment with a fixed star in Ursa Major, the mama bear, the divine mother, which we'll talk about extensively through several different mythological lenses. This lunation is crazy mystical, especially if you take some time to look at and understand the aspects and the symbology behind them, which I did, and I will share with you if you hang out here with me. So it's deeply symbolic. You guys, I cannot wait to break this down for you. We're going to get into it in a second. I just have to finish this thumbnail. Like I said before, it's going to culminate in eclipse in the spring, and it's part of this rare double moon event that falls at 0-29 degrees. So whenever we have a black moon or a blue moon, one fell at 0 degrees and one falls at 29 degrees. So not only is it a big deal because there's two happening in the same house and same sign, so it's like a really big new beginning, but it aspects the critical or anaretic degrees in astrology. 0 degrees, the start, 90 degrees, the end. And when these degrees are aspected strongly, like by a new moon, by the sun and moon at the same time, or by an eclipse, like the 29th degree one will be an eclipse, these bring really big beginnings and even bigger endings, because that ending is an eclipse. So it's fated, it's destined, it's written in the stars, right? This is a big deal. I hope I'm really kind of getting across how big of a deal this one is, because it really is. All right. Now, this new moon sits in a square to Uranus, the Great Awakener. He is a catalyst for this like freedom-seeking change. And if we do not do something radical, something that brings this freedom, this change, this liberation, something will happen out of the fucking blue. Uranus is the planet of unpredictability. We can't really predict how he shows up, but we can kind of take charge and be that catalyst ourselves by doing something out of the fucking ordinary. So that's kind of in the cards right now. If you think you can just skate by, something is going to happen. Something unpredictable, something erratic, something out of left field will happen, because that catalyst is there. So be the catalyst. Be the fucking catalyst. Be the catalyst for change. Uranus is unpredictable. We can't really predict exactly how it will show up. So usually I don't try. I want to try to focus more in this video on understanding the like mystical, symbolic dynamic of the yod and the other things happening. So we're going to talk a lot about the yod, which is sometimes referred to as a finger of fate in a more modern lens, or a finger of God, the mark of divinity itself. Really has a beautiful symbolic understanding, particularly through the Hebrew language, which is where yod comes from, and we're going to dive into that. We'll get into it, I promise. So there is a yod with the top of the little isosceles triangle. The top is the new moon. So we have the sun and moon up at the top at the apex. And then down at the bottom, we have our retrogrades. So we have Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune, which are rewriting, restructuring, realigning, reconfiguring, rediscovering, reawakening certain aspects of our life. And they're working very heavily with this new moon. This is an aspect pattern we will be discussing heavily. I have like 5 notes of handwritten notes, which I think is so funny that I was like literally writing it all out by hand, and it's all about the hand. Like the yod literally means hand. That's what the word translates to. We're going to look at it through an astrological, we're going to look at it through astrology, symbology, numerology, and theology. And we're also going to dive pretty extensively into the concept of a cosmic cradle, which is another one of these aspect patterns, as both of these are present in our sky. So we're going to talk about God's hand and the cosmic cradle. Listen to those songs, you guys. I mean, I'm sure everybody has heard these songs before, but now would be a time to listen to them, really tap into the lyrics, because they speak very heavily to the vibes, all right? All right, so grab your natal chart, and we're going to look and see where a couple of things are, all right? Hold on. It's so hot, you guys. I'm like, oh my God, it's melting. I'm like literally dying here. I just don't want this to get all over my books. I have books everywhere. So I have this like hanging off the table, this ice pack. And I also don't want it dripping all over my dress. All right. Grab your natal chart. Obviously, first, we're going to look and see what house does Virgo fall in. For me, it's my first house. I'm a first house Virgo rising, which is the house of identity, behavior, vitality. I have a lot of mutable placements. I have a Sag stellium in the 4th house. I have, my angles are all mutable, so it aspects all major areas of my life, the top of the chart, the bottom, and the sides, which are the areas of the self, partnership, career, home, very heavily aspecting my chart. So look and see, where does Virgo fall for you? Whatever area Virgo governs in your life, whatever house, not only do you have the eclipse story falling here, so there is majorly fated change happening over this like 18-month period as the nodes transit through that sign, and we have the eclipses in that sign, the south node eclipses. And so it has a lot to do with like this idea of like karmic cleanup, learning a lot of lessons that maybe stem from previous lifetimes, breaking some sort of like habitual patterns and programming. But we have these 2 new moons happening here in a row. So over the next month, this area is extremely a focus. That second new moon is an eclipse, all right? And then both of these new moons seed something that will culminate 6 months later in an eclipse, but just one. So there's 2 seeding events that culminate 6 months later in a full moon, which is an eclipse. So we are in eclipse territory. These is the hand of fate and destiny and God very much in play here. And it's showing up in whatever area of your life Virgo governs the most. Of course, we're going to have some Pisces influence too next month, but we'll get to that a little bit later. And so what house does Virgo govern for you? Do you have any planets near 0 degrees of the mutable signs? If you have planets near 0 degrees of Virgo or Pisces, then those are in either a conjunction or an opposition to this moon. If you have planets near 0 degrees of Sag or Gemini, those planets are in a square to this moon. So you want to look and see what house do those planets fall in, because that area of your life is also majorly of focus. Really, if you have any planets in the mutable signs at all, you're going to be feeling it over the next month and a half, because, you know, we have multiple eclipses happening in these signs. So we have a Virgo new moon, then we have a Pisces eclipse, which is a full moon, which falls at 15 degrees, right smack dab in the middle. And then that's followed by another Virgo new moon, which is a solar eclipse, partial solar eclipse, which falls at 29 degrees. So we got 0 degrees, 15 degrees, 29 degrees. If you have any planets in the mutable signs, go look and see where those planets are. Go look and see what house they fall in, because you may not be feeling it as strongly right now, but you're definitely going to feel it sometime over the next month and a half. Okay? All right. Hopefully you guys found all of the things. You know what's going on in your chart. We can talk a little bit about Virgo now. All right, so Virgo is one of those mutable signs, that she is mutable earth. So the mutable signs are the signs that sit at the end of a season, and they start to shift us into the next season. So they're very adaptable and versatile and shifting. They shift, they move. Virgo is mutable earth. So whenever we have a mutable energy heavily in a chart, we're feeling the call to shift into something new. A new moon is all about that too. Eclipses are all about that too. And so we're really on this precipice of the new, right? The earth element has a lot to do with the material, the practical, the tangible, the real world, the things we can see and touch. With Virgo, it does have a lot to do with service. It also has a lot to do with healing and the mind in general, because it's Mercury ruled. And so it has to do with like details and organization and healing, health, and all of those things. We'll get into it as we read the rest of this slide. The archetype associated with Virgo is the virgin maiden, the virgin mother, or sometimes it is Demeter, the earth goddess, or the earth mother, the goddess of harvest, right? Virgo, which sits in the fall months, has a lot to do with harvesting, and agriculture in general. And so to have 2 Virgo new moons, two opportunities to seed, one by our hand, one by the hand of fate and destiny a month later, because it's eclipse. It's an eclipse. We're not supposed to really be doing too much other than following the path set forth for us. But we have these two opportunities to seed something that is going to culminate so big in the spring, really giving us the opportunity to harvest something of substance. Okay? I always love to read this. This is a little, I guess a poem or a little saying for Virgo. This is from the Complete Handbook of Astrology. It has one for every single one of the signs, but the Virgo one I love the most. And it says, who criticizes all she sees and would even analyze a sneeze? Who hugs and loves her own disease? Humph. Virgo. That's the vibes. That is the vibes. All right, so Virgo traditionally rules the 6th house. During Virgo's season, on a collective scale, we're all kind of feeling the 6th house vibes-ish, because Virgo in mundane astrology governs this area of reality. Now, Virgo, unless you're an Aries rising, Virgo is going to fall in a different house in your chart, which is where you're really feeling this come through into your life. But it's painted with obscure 6th house themes still. Some astrologers will tell you it's not. I don't know. I've seen it play out time and time again for me. So the 6th house. This is the house of health, not just like physical health, but like mental health, spiritual health. Ideally, Virgo is trying to find perfection. I've talked a lot in previous Virgo videos about how Virgo is a mirror of Pisces, which sit opposite each other. Pisces is where we merge back with the one, with the totality of existence, the boundaryless realm, the cosmic womb, the spiritual dimension. And Virgo is a mirror of that in the earthly. And so this is where Virgo gets its sense of like perfection and purity from. And Virgo is trying to help us find an equilibrium, find a balance, find a harmony between our mental, physical, and spiritual aspects of self. Now, Libra, the start of Libra, which is right after Virgo, the start of Libra is the equinox. 0 degrees of Libra is the equinox, the balance between the light and dark, yin and yang. But that is right at 29 degrees of Virgo. Virgo season is where all the work is done so that we can ideally find a semblance of balance once Libra season begins. That 29 0-degree mark of the equinox is the end of Virgo, start of Libra. And Virgo is where we ideally do what needs to be done to get things in order so that we can find a semblance of balance, right? Balance within the mental, the physical, the spiritual aspects of our life. The fan is making my nose run really bad, and I don't have any kind of tissue. Okay, I'll just have to keep sniffling. I might have to like tilt this fan a little ways away from me. Hold on. All right. So the 6th house in Virgo governs like work and employment. All of our like duties and responsibilities. Avenues of service. It governs our diet, our hygiene, and how we can find a balance between our mind and our body. And it's hard. Like Virgo is an earth sign, which has a lot to do with the physical and therefore the body, particularly the health of the body. But it's Mercury ruled, and so it's very heady. It's very much in the head, usually in some sort of ruminating in anxiety and worry, that it's hard to come into the body. Virgo and Virgo season teaches us the importance of balancing the mind and body. Virgo governs our daily routines, our practical skills, our general well-being. We cannot experience the balancing of the scales of Libra, if we do not do the work on our general well-being, the physical and emotional and spiritual and mental aspects of the self during Virgo season. Virgo season is where the work is done. I like to say that Virgo is the like muggle realm and Pisces is the magical realm. And during either Virgo or Pisces season, we have a moon in both signs, and we're really working on balancing the as above and the so below. The realm that we can see and the realm that we cannot. All right? And really focusing on our general fucking well-being. This is also how we treat our bodies. And there's so many typos in here. It really... Virgo is... not pleased with me. Every time I pull this slide, I should go and edit it, and I don't, but whatever. We're just going to roll through it. How we treat our bodies and how we view the earthly realm. Do we look at this body, this realm, as a fucking prison? Or is it a divine school of initiation into the mysteries? All right, because Virgo and Pisces really govern this. In a lot of esoteric traditions, it is the maiden. It is the virgin that is able to tame the beast. That is that aspect, that archetype that initiates us into the mysteries. It is that sense of purity, right? Divine school of initiation into the mysteries. Are we in a fucking prison? Or are we in a school of initiation, right? And how do we look at our body and how do we look at this earthly realm? This is how Virgo shows up for us, right? Now, Virgo in the 6th house governs our daily tasks. It governs what we must do, our responsibilities, our routines. It also has a connection to our career, particularly a career that is like an employment where you're like working for a company or working for somebody or in some sort of service industry. And it also has to do with the home because it has to do with all of our daily tasks and routines. And then it also has an association with pets. Okay. Which I think is interesting considering Virgo, the maiden, is always the one that like tames the lion or tames the unicorn or like tames these pets, right? These, not pets, but these animals, making them into pets. So Virgo, the 6th house, is where consciousness, I know all of these things are spelled wrong. I can see them now. I could not see them when this was being written, just for the record, all right? Where consciousness meets the material. That's Virgo. It's mental, and it is the least earthy of all the earth signs, all right? I'm going to say Taurus is like the most earthy because it literally governs the earth itself, the realm of physicality. Virgo, the least earthy because of that Mercury rulership. It is very much in the head and not as grounded. And then Capricorn, I would say, is like the second earthy of the earth signs. And that's because not only is Virgo Mercury ruled, so it's very mental, but it is also mutable. So it's shifting us into something else. All of the mutable signs are shifting us into something else because it's shifting us into a new season. Virgo is shifting us out of summer and into fall, but it's also shifting us out of something physical and into something spiritual, and that is if it can tap into its opposite sign and integrate what that's about, and that's Pisces. Spirituality, mysticism, the unseen, dreams. Virgo is a sign of both focus and distraction, especially if not grounded. All of the mutable signs are very restless. Virgos, usually it stems from anxiety and worry, and inaction because of perfectionism, things like that. But Virgo can make us very focused on getting things in order, or it can make us very distracted. And which route it takes depends on how well our mind and body are balanced and how grounded into them we are. Okay? Now, Mercury, Mercury traditionally rules Virgo. Now, in some schools of astrological thought, some astrologers say that Chiron, the healer, the wounded healer, also governs Virgo. I am under the school of thought that I think is maybe my own, where I think Chiron is associated with both Sag, another mutable sign, Sagittarius, and Virgo. And that's because Sagittarius is the wounded healer. And he takes our wounds, he heals them, and he unlocks universal wisdom to share and teach others with. And both of these mutable signs give us that trajectory, right? So Virgo is the healing. Sagittarius is the universal wisdom and the teaching. And Chiron is the centaur that is Sagittarius. That is the same guy. So I think that Chiron is associated with both Virgo and Sagittarius. But Mercury definitely is the ruler of Virgo, and then we can give this Chiron lens to it as well. And so Mercury and Chiron, these are the messenger, the healer, the alchemist. All right. Mercury is the planet of communication, how we process information. In its rulership with Virgo, it is very detail oriented. Mercury rules Gemini, another mutable sign, and Virgo. And Gemini, we are just taking in information with no fucking regard for it at all. Just consuming data and information. And when we get to Virgo, this is where we start to analyze that information and look at it through a lens of discernment. Now, a lot of times Virgo gets too hung up on the details that it misses the big picture. Virgo governs the details. Pisces governs the big picture. Sag, another mutable sign. These are all mutable signs I'm talking about here. Sag also helps us start to take what we analyze in Virgo so that we can ask the big questions and start to tap into the big picture. And so right now it's a vibe of like analyzing and discerning data and information. Mercury is the torch of consciousness. And Chiron represents the wound and also the medicine within the wound. And so Virgo is all about healing, and it literally governs medicine, right? In Chiron's case, it's like an esoteric medicine. It is how can we work through our core traumas. And Chiron is aspecting Venus right now. We're going to talk about that as we get into the chart. It's also aspecting the moon. It's in a trine to the moon. Wide trine, but it's in a trine to the moon, working harmoniously with this new moon. Out of sign, wide trine, but it's still there. And so we really have the opportunity to lean into the healing and the medicine during this time. Mercury is our intellectual antenna. It's learning, it's thinking, it's integrating. Especially with the Chiron involvement, it's ideally integrating wisdom and some sort of self-obtained knowledge through our healing journey. So many typos here, you guys. Just roll with it, okay? Just pretend like you don't see them. Yet, Mercury is also known as the trickster, who can make us like believe the illusion. I can't with all these typos. Okay. Focus, Allie. All right. The trickster, who can make us believe some sort of illusion, right? And so this is why the discernment of Virgo is really important right now. Really analyzing, critiquing, questioning, not getting too caught up on the details, but also giving the details their due diligence at this time. Mercury is the rational, analytical mind. It sits beyond duality because it integrates both sides of the mind, and it is, I call it, well, astrologers call it because it is not a feminine planet like Venus or a masculine planet like Mars. It is neutral, or it is the integration of the two together. Mercury can speak the language of all. Gemini, this is supposed to say collects the dots, not connects the dots, because he certainly does not. Gemini collects the dots, and then Virgo analyzes them, starts to connect them. And Virgo is how we utilize the information that Gemini collects, right? And how do we use it practically in the real world to find a semblance of well-being and health and all of that jazz, right? All right, so in the world, in mundane terms, Virgo governs the working class. It governs labor organizations. It governs public institutions, the armed forces, any sort of realm of service, like civil service and the police, in addition to any sort of realm of like public health and hygiene. And then some herbs associated with Virgo, if you'd like to use them in some sort of way, are sage and fennel. Some of the more evolved traits of Virgo are that it's very discerning and discriminating, which can be good or bad, right? It is analytical, it's detail-oriented, it's meticulous, it's clear, it's precise, it's service-minded, it's useful, it's organizing, and ideally it's grounded in both the mind and the body. And it's very practical. It wants to do practical, tangible things to help the world and those around them. Some of the more lower octave traits of Virgo is it's very cynical and hypercritical and obsessive, and the obsession usually comes from a perfectionism. They can be very overly conforming, self-conscious, and controlling. Very fussy, worrying, lots of anxiety, lots of overthinking because of Mercury, really got to ground into the body. They have this like worry and fear of the future, which really comes from their controlling tendencies. They tend to suppress their emotions. The opposite sign, Pisces, governs the vastness of the emotional realm, and Virgo, opposite that. And so they tend to suppress their emotions until they bubble up. They can be overly logical and even tend to kind of over-intellectualize their emotions. Very stubborn for a mutable sign. Perfectionism, and then they can be a little confused, and that is because they get hung up on some kind of detail that they really miss the picture and what's going on. I see this all the time with my Virgo stellium daughter, and it's so funny because my Leo daughter, like, she catches this and she always can tell that she's like lost and doesn't know what was said and is hung up on whatever one thing that was said, that she missed the whole like overarching theme of what was said, and she'll just like reiterate it for her in a way where she like gets it. She just knows that she is hung up on one thing. Usually it's something that was like said wrong, but everybody else knew what they meant, and she's really wanting to like critique the fact that you said that one thing wrong, that she kind of stopped listening to everything else that was being said, and so now she's confused and she doesn't know what's going on because that one little detail. And yeah, very judgmental and very much likes to, you know, criticize any chance that they get. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the fixed star that is in the fixed stars that are in alignment with this moon before we get into the chart and the aspects and all of that. And I have notes here somewhere. Oh my God, my nose. All right, so we have this finger of God, which I will talk about more when we get into the chart and be able to kind of see what I'm talking about here. But it's this like skinny little triangle pointing at the new moon, and then at the bottom is our retrogrades, and it's pointing at the sun and moon, but it's also pointing at some fixed stars. And so what are those fixed stars? So one of them is Regulus, which is the heart of the lion. I don't have a picture of that here for you, I'm sorry. It is the heart of the constellation of Leo, and it is one of the 4 royal fixed stars, and all of these fixed stars fall in fixed signs, although they have all since moved into mutable signs And in 2012, Regulus moved into mutable Virgo. All of these stars were revered by the ancients, particularly in Persia. They're sometimes referred to as royal Persian fixed stars because the Persians really cataloged them extensively and just revered them in general. And they're all considered to bring success. And so this star is conjunct this new moon and the things seated at this time. Keep that in mind, all right? Now, all of these stars are said to bring success as long as a certain human nemesis is avoided. In Regulus's case, it is revenge. So things seated during this time can end in success as long as you stay away from any sort of means of revenge, which should be pretty easy to do. Some of the other fixed stars have harder things to kind of pull off. Regulus is pretty easy as long as you aren't baneful or vengeful or rooted in some form of revenge when it comes to the actions taken at this time. The things that are seated, as long as they are aligned with your fated destined path, because remember we're in eclipse territory, should work out in your favor. The star is absolutely revered. We're not going to get into it too extensively here. We have in previous videos because I want to focus more on this other fixed star, which we have yet to talk about. If you want to know more about Regulus, comment down below and I'll send you a link to a video I did in the past where we talk about it pretty extensively. Okay? All right. What star is this yod pointing at? All right. It is pointing at the star in Ursa Major. So Ursa Major is the big bear, the mama bear that circles around the baby bear, which is the pole star. And it guards and it protects it. It is, the Big Dipper is usually a constellation people can find. Not a real constellation. It's the ass of the bear. This is the whole constellation. But the star aligns with the haunches or the rump of Ursa Major. I don't know how to pronounce this star's name, so I will spell it for you. Phekda. Or sometimes instead of the K, it's a C. Especially in the Vedic tradition, they use the C. All right, so this is the mama bear, the rump of the mama bear. In Vedic tradition, the star is seen as one of the 7 sages. We'll get into a little bit more down below as to which sage and what it represents. Very interesting, so interesting. We'll get there in a second. Diana Rosenberg, fixed star freaking master astrologer on fixed stars. In her book, Under the Stars, she had this quote from Einstein, who has his Uranus here, which I think is so interesting, especially considering all of the symbology behind the yod and things we're going to talk about here. And so I put the quote here. I wanted to read it to you guys. It says, "I want to hear God's thoughts. The rest are just details." So Virgo. It is so Virgo. If Virgo is in its higher octave, because Virgo is a very spiritual sign. It's a sign that is seeking perfection and union and service to something. Usually it ends up being in service to an employer or being in service to one's children or partner or somebody in their life. But ideally what they're seeking is service to God or source or the power behind all things. And it says, "I want to hear God's thoughts. The rest are just details." We're going to talk about how the essence of divinity and the divine spark within all things is so profoundly expressed right now during this moon and then really as we move into eclipse season. The stars of Leo are also here, like I said, which represents the divine child. Leo is ruled by the sun, and it governs the 5th house of children, and Leo is associated with the child aspect, which I think is interesting considering we also have the cradle present. We'll get into a little bit later. Stars of Leo are here. This is the divine child, which is also what this great bear protects. This great bear is the big bear that circles around the pole star, which is the baby bear, and it guards and it protects it. We have the royal star Regulus here, which is the lion's heart, which brings success. And then we also have tropical Virgo here. So we have the constellation of Leo here, and then we have tropical Virgo here, which I wrote here, it makes me think of like the strength card in the tarot, where we have the maiden or the virgin mother and the lion. And the maiden is like taming or tempering the lion, right? And so we have that kind of energy very present in this new moon. All right, so this fixed star, the name that I can't pronounce, Phekda, is an Arabic word that literally translates to thigh of the bear. In China, this star is said to be a holy star. So Virgo, so perfect for this like hand of God pointing at it, right? But it's said to be a holy star, and it brings wealth, fortune, and prosperity. The Chinese astrology really tends to like categorize things as like good and bad, as like bringing fortune or bringing hardship. Like some things are very looked at as malefic and some things are very looked at as benefic. And this star is one of the good ones, according to them. I'm not under the school of thought that things are innately bad or good, but they are. And this star, according to Chinese astrologers, brings wealth, fortune, prosperity, and it is holy in nature. It is sacred. Now, in Vedic astrology, the star is associated with one of the sages. I'm not going to try to pronounce this because I'll butcher it, but I, again, will spell it for you. This is how you spell the sage's name. Pulastya. And he's one of the 7 sages. He's actually the sage of knowledge. And he was born from the mind of Brahma. So Brahma is like the creator aspect of the divine, where we have like the creator, sustainer, destroyer, trinity in Vedic tradition, in lots of traditions, but particularly in Vedic tradition, different emanations of the God force. He is the creator aspect of that. And the sage was born from his mind. Okay. So this is pretty fucking cool for me. I like this kind of shit. All right. So this sage is the sage who, like, because he's the sage of knowledge, right? And he was the one who gave humanity the legends and the folklore, including the concept of cycles, the cycles of time, like the yugas or the ages, like how we're in the Kali Yuga and we're moving into whatever the other yuga is. And even the concept of the ages, like we're in the age of Pisces, moving into the age of Aquarius, the great precessional year. He also gave humanity the creation story, and he was considered the father of Vedic astrology. He gave humanity this concept of astrology. So Brahma, the mind of the creator, was the one who was actually downloaded this information. And then he told it to the sage, and the sage wrote it down, which I think is interesting, the writing of the word. As we get into what yod means and the concept of the yod, which is pointing at the star, remember? It has a lot to do with the word and words in general. So I think it's interesting that this star is responsible for writing down all these sacred words and legends and concepts from the mind of the creator, which he was born from, and then he gave it to humanity. His name translates to an ancient sage, so like ancient wisdom, right? And he's associated with wisdom. He's also associated with the constellation of Virgo. And the general idea of transmitting knowledge from the mind of the creator to humanity. He is the son of Brahma, who is the creator and the creator aspect of the divine. And he is responsible for transmitting knowledge from the creator to humanity, particularly writing down things like the legends, the cycles, and all of these really sacred things that we're still talking about now. All right. I'm just trying to see if I wrote more about this guy because I got more pages over here. No. All right. So those are the fixed stars that are in alignment with this new moon that the finger of God is pointing at. This sage, the sacred ancient sage, who is the transmitter of knowledge from the creator. And then also the heart of the lion, which is a star of success, as long as we're not an asshole, right? Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about this concept of fate, this finger of fate, this finger of destiny, this finger of God that is pointing at this new moon. All right. All right, here's our chart. You guys, I have so much notes. Where do I want to start? Okay, over here. All right, so I used the chart from the Honeycomb Planner because I feel like there's so many aspects to talk about here, and I didn't want to have to make this all in Canva, so we took a snapshot. So we've already talked a little bit about the concept of a Virgo new moon, starting new chapters, planting new seeds in the area of our life ruled by Virgo. That's going to culminate in a really big fucking way because of the eclipse energy and because of there being a fact that there's going to be 2 new moons here. One here at 0 degrees, a month later, one here at 29 degrees. This area of our life, whatever house this governs in your chart, is very strongly impacted by this new moon. Now, this new moon is in a yod. Well, we'll get to the yod in a second. First, let's talk about the square to Uranus, because this is the tightest aspect. Well, I guess they're all just as tight because they're all at 1 degrees. But a yod is a more modern concept. It's made by 2 minor aspects, and we'll talk about how it's kind of like an invention of the 20th century. Square, we've been using squares for a long fucking time, so let's start here first. So square to Uranus. All right, square to Uranus. Uranus is unpredictable. We cannot predict how this will show up, but we can try and harness it and be the catalyst for the unpredictability. Look and see where Gemini falls in your chart, what house it governs. For me, it is my 10th house of mission, purpose, career, public standing. You want to look and see what does Gemini govern. What house does Gemini govern in your natal chart? This is where Uranus will be transiting for a considerable length of time, really shaking things up. And this new moon and the seeds being planted around this new moon can bring some disruption, some sort of chaos, some sort of unpredictability, some sort of erratic nature from whatever house Gemini governs. Now, Gemini has to do with information. It has to do with the mind. It has to do with data and the processing of information. It also has to do with the communication of information, the transmission of information and knowledge, right? And Uranus is there. So you really want to look and see what house this is coming from, and then try to do something out of fucking left field to kind of harness that Uranian influence in that house so it doesn't just It's kind of leaking everywhere. So it doesn't, hold on, my books. So it doesn't just kind of show up out of nowhere, right? You have the opportunity, because this is a new moon, not an eclipse, to exert your will upon the situation to whatever extent you can. We're still in eclipse territory. And the hand of fucking God is pointing at this, which is so fated and destined and karmic. But Uranus wants change. It wants freedom. It wants liberation. It is a catalyst for our future. And sometimes it can be very unpredictable and erratic. And sometimes it's asking us to be a little unpredictable and erratic and do things that are, futuristic and outside of our comfort zone and push us into the future in whatever area of our life that governs. For example, for me, it is my 10th house. And since Uranus moved into my 10th house, I have tried in my career, my mission, my purpose in the world, to do things a little bit differently, especially kind of utilizing new technologies, even like breaking free in order to kind of be seen a little bit more. I'm trying to like show my face more and, spread out into different platforms and do things like that, right? And I am trying to be the catalyst for that change so that something crazy doesn't just happen outside of my control. Uranus is like, Rick Levine always calls Uranus like this pressure cooker of change that will eventually strike like a lightning bolt in a very erratic, unpredictable way. You never know where lightning's going to strike, unless, of course, you stick a lightning rod and you can kind of direct that charge towards something. And so this moon is kind of asking you to stick a lightning rod somewhere and do something that's maybe outside of your character, outside of your comfort zone, but that will bring a sense of freedom and liberation to a certain area of your life and bring a change. It is a catalyst that is seeking freedom. It's like seeking change that will bring about freedom and liberation and a new kind of chapter for you. Definitely want to look and see what house, because that is where this is showing up. Okay, hold on. You guys, I can't express how hot I am. I am not in the tax bracket that has central air. I'm like literally dying. I'm in I'm in Southern California, so it's not, it could be worse. Let's just put it that way. But I'm just like kind of dying. All right. So Uranus is in a square to this moon. It's unpredictable. Something crazy could just happen. Try to be the crazy that happens. Try to own the crazy. Be the crazy you want to see in the world. All right, so let's talk about this yod. All right, so this is the yod. This little isosceles triangle that is two quincunxes, or inconjuncts they're referred to as, and those are connected by a sextile. So we got Pluto retrograde sextile, Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde, in a harmonious aspect to each other. But each of these are in like a weird aspect with the moon, all right? Quincunx, or an inconjunct, is a 150-degree aspect. So it is, it's like 30 degrees away from being in opposition, all right? And it's considered an annoying aspect because they can't see eye to eye on anything. This planet and these and this planet and these have nothing in common, all right? Every other major aspect has something in common with each other. Like a trine. A trine is the same element. So it's this free-flowing understanding of the same elemental energy, and they're able to work very harmoniously together. A sextile, like these two are in a sextile to each other, are the same polarity. So we have an air sign and a fire sign, and these are both of the yang or the positive polarity, and so they can see eye to eye on that. Even a square, even though it's a tense aspect, a square is the same modality. And so we have a mutable new moon and a mutable Uranus, and they can see eye to eye on that at least. A quincunx has absolutely nothing in common with that planet that it's aspecting. It is not the same polarity, so one is yin and one is yang. It is not the same element. It is not the same modality. This one is mutable. This one is fixed. This one is mutable. This one is cardinal. This one is earth. This is fire. This is earth. This is air. They have absolutely nothing in common with each other. Yet, they're aspecting each other. Now, again, Rick Levine, who I studied under for a little while, he refers to a quincunx as this pebble in your shoe. And that is when there's just one, right? A finger of God makes two, and it's a different story. We'll get there in a second. But when there's just one, there is a disconnect here. Something needs a compromise, but it's not so forceful like a square that forces us into action to bring about that compromise. It's like a pebble in your shoe. You're walking, you're being annoyed, you're being irritated, something's not right, there's a sort of disconnect, but it's not so annoying that you are forced to stop and take the pebble out of your shoe. You have to choose to do so. You have to choose to fix the situation. And so a yod is two quincunxes pointing at this apex, and the two bottom planets actually have something in common. And so this is where the harmony can come in to help us reach this apex, to help us pull the pebbles out of both of our shoes, because we got two quincunxes are in conjuncts here, and reach the top of this apex. Now, if you have a yod or a finger of God in your chart, like I do, pointing up at the top of my chart, it's like God's hand is pointing at that area of your life and saying, this is fucking important, do this. But it's not easy. And you're also not forced into doing it. You have to kind of choose to do it. Yet it's fated, yet it's karmic, yet it's destined. If you have a yod in your chart, or if you are an astrologer and you want to dive more into yods, this is a book that I would recommend. We were going to read out of this, but I highlighted way too much. We can't do all this. There's a lot of good stuff in here, but it's a little too much. So the Yod book by Karen Hammaker, and it also talks about not just yods, but also planets that are completely unaspected and how those play a part in the chart as well. For my astrologers out there, my astrology enthusiasts, this is really the only book I've ever seen on yods that's crossed my path, although there are others. All right, so I have a whole bunch of notes here on yods and how it's kind of showing up in this chart. All right, so a yod, or a finger of God, or a finger of fate, which is pointing at this new moon, is a very karmic and very fated, rare aspect pattern that suggests some sort of life lesson or life purpose, especially when in a natal chart. It's pointing at a specific lesson or specific purpose in your chart, but this purpose and this lesson is deeply karmic and fated and not really easily obtained unless you can kind of work with all of the energies present. It's tied, this lesson or this purpose is tied to the planet, the house, and the sign that is at the apex. So for this new moon, the lesson or the purpose is tied to the Virgo New Moon, which we know is already such a big fucking deal because we're going to have two here. We got eclipses and all this stuff. and then whatever house that falls in for you. And so it probably has something to do with healing, health, service, balance between mind and body, work, details, organization, things along those lines. And then whatever planets you may have there will also be in play. So this is seen as the finger of fate or the finger of God, and it is associated with our karmic mission. It can bring challenges and a sense of restlessness as we attempt to understand and integrate the planets involved. In this case, it's the retrogrades, which are already, retracing their steps, reassessing, reconfiguring, realigning certain areas of our life. Look and see, where is Aquarius for you? Pluto will be there for the next 20 years, transforming that area. And right now he is integrating some of the transformation that he's already gone through. Look and see where Aries falls. We got Neptune and Saturn in the early degrees about to transit through here over the next couple of years, especially Neptune. And right now they are retrograde, dipping back into Pisces to reintegrate something along this equinox degree, along this period of profound endings and profound beginnings. This is the start of the zodiac. It's dipping back into the end in order to start again. And it is retracing its steps. It's integrating, it's rediscovering, it's reawakening, it's realigning certain areas of our life. And you want to look and see what houses these are. Okay, very restless as we attempt to understand and integrate the planets involved. A yod also represents a unique opportunity for growth, especially when aspecting a new moon like this that's aligned with some nice fixed stars. An opportunity for growth, an opportunity for expansion and transformation. Yeah, it's aspecting Pluto, all about transformation. And it's pushing us ultimately towards some sort of spiritual evolution. Like the finger of God is pointing in the direction that will bring us spiritual understanding, spiritual evolution, and it's very karmic, and there are lessons involved, yet it is part of our purpose and our mission. And right now we're all feeling this finger pointing towards the house in our chart that Virgo governs, asking us to develop it in a certain way. Now the apex is the planet of focus. This new moon is what is of focus. It's the central theme, all right? So the Virgo, healing, health, service, duty, responsibility, balance between mind, body, soul. This is the central theme. The planets here at the bottom that are sextile each other are the areas where we can experience potential harmony and connection that can help us reach that central theme, that can help us develop that apex. And so again, you really want to look and see how this is in your chart in order to kind of understand how this will show up for you, what houses, right? But Pluto in Aquarius has to do with a death and rebirth and a transformation that comes from the realm of the collective mind, groups or friends or community. Really, you want to look and see what house, though, it kind of governs in your chart. Like for me, it's my 6th house, and so it does have a lot to do with the healing, health, service, duty, responsibility, things like that. You want to look and see where does Aries fall. Of course, it has to do with like the spark of life, action, drive, motivation, the self, but you want to look and see what house that falls in. For me, it's my 8th house, and so it has to do with death and rebirth and transformation and the occult and the esoteric, and this is where I can really experience the harmony that can help me strive towards that apex. For every single one of you, it's going to be different. Now, these planets here that are sitting in a quincunx to the moon, in this case, these are where we need to find some sort of adjustment, all right? Some sort of, and I mean, like, what's so great is that their planets are retrograde. So we actually have the opportunity to do the adjustment. Instead of just feeling fucking annoyed, we've already retraced our steps. We're already looking to find a place to sit down so we can take those fucking pebbles out of our shoes and move forward in a more aligned way. The retrogrades are really, I love that the retrogrades are here because retrogrades bring adjustment, and there is a need for adjustment here. We need adjustment. We need to adapt in some way. And there's also a potential for tension and frustration. The square to Uranus also brings tension and frustration and these quincunxes to these areas of our life, whatever house these two govern. There's also some sort of tension and frustration coming from those areas of your life. Make sure you have your chart in front of you in order to kind of understand how that's showing up for you. Now, the Yod highlights an area of life where we are meant to grow. And we're growing really big here because we got 2 new moons seeding into eclipses. This is the area where we are meant to grow in a really big fucking way because we got the 2 new moons and the eclipses, which I literally wrote right here. And we're also meant to fulfill some sort of fated, destined, karmic, spiritual, godly, divine purpose here. This involves navigating challenges here and challenges here, and making adjustments here and adjustments here. And ultimately fighting a path towards growth, transformation that is deeply spiritual and karmic. All right, so the word Yod comes from the Hebrew letter Yod. All right, so it's the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it is called Yod. And that translates to hand, okay? The next couple pages of notes here, a lot of it came from the website Hebrew for Christians. If you guys want to kind of dive deeper into that. Now, when you look up, so aspect patterns, whether it be even like, well, I guess maybe like a grand trine is older and a grand cross is older, but aspect patterns like a mystic rectangle, or a Star of David, or a grand sextile, or this cradle we're going to talk about next, or the finger of God. These are all more modern concepts that we really see kind of grow throughout the 20th century. I tried to figure out who discovered and named the Yod. Like, where did that start? I cannot find that at all. Nobody knows. I guess it's kind of up for debate. There are some astrologers, which we'll get into. I have some notes here. We'll get into it. Who throughout the 20th century kind of were responsible for popularizing this concept, but I can't figure out who started it. No idea. I don't think anybody knows. A lot of the minor aspects, so like the quincunx or the semi-sextile or some of these considered minor aspects, things beyond a conjunction, opposition, square, or trine, a lot of those were created or developed as concepts by Kepler. And then like he expanded upon them and gave them their own kind of like interpretations through like numerology and even through like music theory. And so sometimes he is cited as being the one to come up with maybe this aspect in general, the quincunx. But the idea of the finger of God, nobody knows where that comes from. It's like obscured in mystery. But in this book, the Yod book, she does talk a lot about how Kepler is involved in some of these minor aspects. Okay, so let's talk about what a Yod is, the word Yod, what it means, because it's so fucking cool, you guys. It's really, really profound. All right, so like I said, it is a Hebrew letter. It's the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it translates to hand because it kind of looks, the pictorial picture of it, there's like different ways to break it down. There's like the actual little letter, which looks like a little apostrophe too. And then there's like this pictorial breakdown of it, which looks like an arm or a hand stretched out. Kind of like that. The Yod is the most frequently occurring letter in the scriptures, as well as the smallest. It's actually part of every single letter. So it is always kind of like suspended in midair like an apostrophe. the yod, the smallest, is like the atom, not like atom, but like atom, like as in like a particle, tiniest building blocks of the material world. Like an atom is the building blocks of the material world. The yod is the building blocks of all of the other letters and all of the other words. It's the atom of the consonants. And the form from which all of the other letters both begin and end. It is the first dot with which all of the scribes first start writing a letter, or the last dot that gives a letter its final form. This is a yod. In mystic tradition, the yod represents a mere dot, a divine point of energy. Much like in the sun glyph, how we have this dot in the middle, which represents this like pure potential, this 0 point energy, and the circle represents that source of like completedness. The yod is that same kind of vibe. Since the yod is used to form all of the other letters, and since God uses the letters, aka the word, as the building blocks or the atoms of creation, yod indicates God's omnipresence. Something we feel strongly with this aspect, particularly at this like rare 0 degree, 29 degree, double moon, eclipse season, area of fate and destiny we find ourselves in. The word yod, this 3-letter word, as opposed to the letter yod, the word yod, when drawn in Hebrew, I wish I had this picture for you. I took a screenshot and I was going to show it to you, but I guess I don't have it. You'll have to kind of try to follow along with me here. So the word yod, Y-O-D, but in Hebrew, depicts the geometry of creation itself. It begins with the letter yod, a little dot, which then moves down from the upper part, which is the area of the divine, towards the created order, or like the as below, to form the next letter, the Vav, which means the hook of creation. And then finally it moves outward into the horizontal realm as the letter that means the doorway of creation. So the yod leads to the world of creation, and then it opens the doors from the unseen out into the material. This is so Virgo. This is so Pisces. This is so this axis of energy. Virgo is very much like the yod letter. It's a reflection, a perfect mirror of the divine, but in the physical, just like the words are in the physical. Of the divine in the practical material universe. Like Pisces is the immaterial universe. Virgo is the material. It's the word. Virgo also loves words. This is so poetic. This is so symbolic. The cosmic beauty is really undeniable here. And then here is a quote from Hebrews 1 verse 3. Since Yeshua upholds the world by the word of his power, and yod is part, and then it goes on to say, and yod is part of every Hebrew letter and word. Yod is considered the starting point of the presence of God in all things. It's the spark of the Spirit in everything. Now, you might be asking yourself, like I was, well, why is it the 10th letter of the alphabet and not the first letter? If it's used to make all the letters, wouldn't it have to be the first letter? I bet you were asking yourself that. I was. Well, let me tell you why. All right, so yod is the smallest letter, and it's like a little seed, which is so very new moon, right? And it brings lessons in humility, how the smallest letter can be so profound. Sometimes yod is represented as an arm or a hand reaching towards heaven, instead of a finger of God pointing down towards Earth, depending on who's kind of telling the story. Now, let's talk about why it is the 10th letter. Very cool. All right, so 10, the number 10 represents completion and order. It's where we get through all of the 9 digits and we complete that order of 10. The base 10 number system is universal. We see it all over. Just as the yod is part of all letters, yod is also part of all numbers. There were 10 things, and then it's speaking from a theological mindset. Like it's speaking, I mean, this is a Hebrew concept, so of course we have to look to the Hebrew faiths in order to understand the symbolism behind it. Well, the reason why I love astrology so much is it really is a melding pot of so many different esoteric and spiritual and religious concepts that span the globe. A lot of it comes from Arabic tradition, and then of course we have the Greek influence, and we see layers of modern astrology taken from so many different faiths. And the yod really comes from the Abrahamic traditions. And so to understand the symbolism of the yod, we have to look at the mystical side of the Abrahamic faiths. So the base system of 10 numbers is universal. Just as the yod is part of all letters, the yod is also part of all numbers. There were 10 things created on the first day of creation. And then there were 10 things created at the end of the 6th final day of creation, the beginning and the end, just like the yod starts and ends all letters. There were 10 generations from Adam to Noah, and then 10 generations from Noah to Abraham, suggesting that the godliness of those generations was complete. There were 10 trials of Abraham, and there were 10 plagues during the Exodus in Egypt. There were 10 commandments, although that's kind of up for debate. There used to be a lot more commandments, but yeah, I guess they kind of settled on 10. And in Jewish mysticism, there are 10 forces of the tree of life that depict the metaphysical workings of God in the universe. The number 10 is a number of completion. So of course, we had it there at the 10, but it is part of making every single one of the letters. All right, so the yod aspect pattern, this, is a modern concept. It was created in the 20th century, like I said before, but we don't really know by who. I can't figure it out. If you can figure it out, let me know. I spent a kind of long time trying to. So its origins, like the yod itself, are shrouded in mystery. Some claim its origin is part of like medieval Arabic astrology, although this can't really be proved. Most cite it as a modern practice, and a lot of places credit a book from the year 2000 by Joan Kellogg as being what really kind of popularized it in modern astrological practices. But there are some people previous to that who are also responsible for kind of bringing this concept to astrology. There was Mark Edmund Jones, who was a writer, screenwriter, and astrologer. He was born in 1888 and he died in 1980. He wrote some books and some literature, some astrological texts that touched on the concept of a quincunx and of this finger of God. We also had another astrologer, an English astrologer by the name of John Addy, who was born around the same time, 1920, he died 1982. He wrote a lot of books on harmonics. So a lot of books on aspects and the different kind of harmonic aspects that planets make to each other, including the quincunx. And he touched on this concept of the finger of God as well. And the best I can tell is that this quincunx or inconjunct was originally a concept of Kepler. And then later, when they started in the 20th century, astrologers started looking at a chart and being like, okay, look, not only is there a trine here and some sextiles here, but look, it makes a little fucking triangle. And so they started calling these things, these patterns, things, right? Oh, this is a mystic rectangle. Oh, this is a Star of David or a grand sextile. Oh, this is this. And then we started reading into that, studying that in charts, and coming up with interpretations for that. And so while we do not know where the finger of God originated, it is used today. And it is this source of the divine, pointing very strongly at something that we're being urged to develop karmically. There's a lesson here, there's a purpose here, and it requires us to navigate challenges and find some sort of needed adjustments. And the way that we do that is by really harnessing the sextile, all right, which we have as part of a grand, well, not really a grand sextile, but a working rectangle or a minor grand trine. Because not only do we have Pluto retrograde, sextile Saturn, and Neptune retrograde, which is part of the bottom of this yod, but they're also sextiling Uranus, which is square this moon, and then Uranus is in a trine to Pluto. So all of these planets here are working harmoniously together. Yeah, they're all aspecting the moon in aspects of tension. Uranus in a square, that's a sign of tension, conflict, inner struggle. Saturn and Neptune in a quincunx, there's a disconnect there. Pluto in a quincunx, there's a disconnect there, but they're all working together harmoniously, either through a trine or sextile. And so if we put in a little bit of effort to really kind of harness what all of these planets want us to do, Uranus asking us to break free, liberate ourselves from something in the area of our life ruled by Gemini in order to move into the future. If we can allow Uranus the space to show up, if we can do what Saturn and Neptune retrograde are asking us to rewrite, restructure, reconfigure, realign in the area of our life ruled by not only Aries, but also Pisces, because they're going to move in there, and really this equinox degree of balance. What can we do? What can we dissolve? What illusions can we shatter? What responsibility can we revisit in order to find a sense of balance and a resurrection of the self, right? Also, there's a profound spiritual lesson coming through this area of our chart too, not just because we have Neptune, spirituality, conjunct Saturn lessons, but they're moving into Pisces, the spiritual dimension, where they were stationed direct and move in. And so they're integrating something that's really been kind of happening in our lives since 2012. This is the last ditch integration of that spiritual lesson. And so if we can do the rewriting, restructuring, reconfiguring, realigning that these planets are asking us to do, and then also what Pluto, some sort of transformative integration, retracing the steps, rewriting, restructuring the changes that have already been happening in the realm of our life ruled by Aquarius, if we can do all of these things and allow all of these things the right to kind of show up, then that harmony will help us to embody the new beginning that this new moon is asking us to embody. All right, so another aspect to this moon is a trine to Chiron. So you can see this little blue line, trining Chiron. Now it's a wide orb. Chiron is at 26 and 27 degrees of Aries, and the moon is at 0 degrees of Virgo, so it's like 27, 28, 29, like 3 degrees off, but it's out of sign. So it's not as simple of a trine. When it's in, if Chiron was at 0 degrees of Taurus, then they would be in the same element. So it'd be earth to earth. There'd be a lot of really free-flowing, easy energy when it comes to embodying that wounded healer, doing the healing necessary to unlock the wisdom. Chiron is within an orb to a trine to the new moon, but it's out of sign. It's still over in Aries, and so it doesn't have the element in common. It actually has nothing nothing in common, except for the orb of influence. And so it wants to work with it, but it still wants to be able to express the element that it falls under. In this case, it's fire. So fiery healing, fiery transmutation of the self. Chiron has been transiting through Aries since 2018, really digging into core wounds around identity and the expression of self. And it's at the tail end of this, about to move into Taurus here in 2020, sometime in 2026. I can't remember exactly when. I think it's like early 2026. But Chiron, like we talked earlier, is one of the co-rulers in at least some sort of astrological lenses when it comes to Virgo. And so it is like a ruling planet of Virgo. And so it brings some of that harmony because Virgo understands what Chiron wants from us. Virgo wants us to heal. Chiron wants us to heal. And so the wounded healer archetype is very much strongly expressed right now in the chart, in this new moon. Whatever this new beginning, whatever these seeds that are being planted will revolve around some form of healing of identity, some sort of healing of expression of the self, our healing of our outlook on life, healing around feeling like we can act and be a pioneer in our own fucking lives, right? And then of course you want to look and see what area does Aries govern for you. For me, it's my 8th house. I got Chiron right on top of my Jupiter in the fucking 8th house right now. So it's really wounds around my growth, wounds around being able to embody a sense of optimism through times of collective chaos. And of course it's coming through that 8th house of like death, rebirth, transformation, the occult, the esoteric. So of course astrology is very much a catalyst for that, for me personally. But we've got Chiron working harmoniously with this moon. This moon wants us to plant seeds around some sort of fated, destined, godlike purpose, and work through some challenges to get there. And it wants us to plant seeds that will help us to heal our general fucking well-being, right? Okay. We talked about this. We talked about that. We talked about this. Okay, so let's talk about these outer planets here, you guys. The outer planets, so 2025, we talked about this. I need to drink this, hold on. So 2025 is a year of like profound change because all of the outer planets moved from signs that they have been in for a long fucking time into signs that they will now be in for a new long fucking time. And so 2025 is a catalyst, a year of profound change. And we talked about this a lot in the beginning of the year. Now, maybe you're feeling like, well, where's the fucking change, Allie? Like, we are halfway through the year and I'm still in the same fucking situation I was in before, and I don't feel like anything has changed. I just feel a lot of tension and conflict, and like I'm sitting between the old and the new, and I'm really revisiting the old, restructuring the old, rewriting the old, trying to understand the lessons of the old, but I cannot actually see what is the new yet. And that's because all of these planets are at these very early degrees of the signs that they moved into. They just kind of dipped into those signs, just kind of started that idea of new, envisioning the new, and then they stationed retrograde. All but Uranus, who will eventually station retrograde. And they're all moving backwards, back into where they've been. We are on the precipice of the new, but we have not got there yet. We are at this liminal space between the old chapter and the new chapter. I said this in a previous video. It's like we're at, it's extended, of course, but we feel like we're at that moment in time where you finish reading a chapter and you're like turning the page to get to the next chapter. That moment of like turning is where we're at. Just, it's extended. It's not just quick, you know? So I wrote some notes here. So 2025 is a year marked by these outer planet shifts. And right now they are all harmoniously aspecting each other at the early degrees of their signs, all of which are of the yang, so outward projecting polarity, very in their like masculine expression. And they all are harmoniously aspecting each other and will be all the way through, I think it's like mid-September. Really feeling this really strongly around the moon, especially when they all kind of move to this 1 degree point. This is a very tight aspect where they're all working together, all right? They're all in a very harmonious aspect to each other. These are generational planets that are responsible for shaping generations to come. They move very slowly. The change they bring is something that takes time. It's not a personal planet that just comes through, some Mercury, some Mars, some little action that's going to fizzle out. These are generational planets that literally shape the generation to come. And we're at this liminal space between the last world, the last generation, and whatever is to come. And it has not come yet. So we feel kind of like stuck in the middle. These are generational planets. They're shaping generations to come. This signals the end and the birth of something new. These are unprecedented times we are living in. Like, to have all these outer planets move at the same time, to all be aspecting each other harmoniously, like, these are unprecedented times. I cannot stress enough how rare these type of aspects are. We're really at the kind of like turning of the ages, where we are sitting between the old world and the new. And 2025 is really the liminal space between the old and the new. And right now we have all of these planets working together in this minor, or in this, it's called a working rectangle or a minor grand trine, or a minor trine. And they're all working together. And now they're actually part of a bigger aspect pattern, which is known as a cradle. Some people call it a basket, but a basket is a different thing. A basket is where we have like a lot of planets all together, like a stellium and multiple signs. This is a cradle. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. So it's an opposition. So in this case, it's Pluto retrograde opposite Venus. That's like the top of the basket. And then it's two of these working rectangles. So you see this? This is the cradle. This is the cradle. All right, so we have Pluto retrograde opposite Venus. And then we have that opposition connected to these two working rectangles, we'll call them, because they're working triangles, we'll call them. And they're called working triangles because they require a little bit of work and a little bit of effort in order to harness the harmony. Uranus and Pluto working very harmoniously together through a trine. Really a lot of free-flowing energy coming from Uranus wanting to break free, Pluto wanting to transform. We also have a harmonious trine between Venus and Saturn and Neptune retrograde, restructuring, reconfiguring, and now bringing other people, our values, our finances, our relationships into the forefront of that restructuring. But this is a cradle. So let's talk a little bit about a cradle because I have some notes on that too back here. All right, so a cradle, which we have, look and see where this all falls in your chart, okay? Please, the houses, because that really matters. So a cradle represents an excess of pleasure or harmony. And it is an aspect of stability, like a cradle. It's cradling you, right? There is also perhaps a baby in the cradle, something that is being born, something that is being protected, something that, born or protected. Baby in the cradle. I wrote here kind of like our new moon intentions or our new moon seeds. Those could be like the little baby in the cradle that is being nurtured and protected. The baby in the cradle has entered the material world from the spiritual, and it reflects perfect purity. The cradle in a natal chart can represent a like childlike nature, or like really being in touch with your inner child. In a transit chart like this, it can ask us to tap into our childlike qualities, or work on some sort of early life trauma, or tap into our inner child in some sort of way. When we have this aspect pattern present in the sky, we are seeking security and protection and a state of stability in our situations. We're actively pursuing stability. We're actively pursuing security. We're actively pursuing protection. And so we could be setting intentions and planting seeds at this time that will bring us a sense of stability, security, protection. This pattern offers a sense of stability and protection, particularly to the seeds that we plant at this time. It's a nurturing environment or a safe haven, like a plant nursery for our little seeds, for our little intentions. I wrote a little bit here about the square to Uranus too that I didn't read. So we've got the moon square Uranus. We're planting seeds that will bring about freedom, liberation, change that breaks us free from the old so that we may move into the new, into the future. We have a major new beginning happening here because of these double moons and eclipse season, and it's really being ushered in through this finger of God. Like we have this the divine pointing at something in such a big fucking way. Not only do we have the Yod pointing at it, but we have two new moons here that culminate in eclipses, plus the second new moon itself is a fucking eclipse. It's a solar eclipse. And so we have this hand of fate and destiny pointing at it in such a profound way. And then we have this cradle really nurturing it. And then we have protecting it, like a plant nursery. And then we also have the fixed stars, which brings success and a transmission of knowledge aspecting this moon as well. Okay, a couple things I want to touch on here that we haven't talked on yet. That's the opposition between Pluto and Venus, which alone would be real harsh, but remember it's part of this cradle, and so there's like all of these harmonious aspects to it as well, bringing in more harmony to the situation, more stability to the situation. But Pluto retrograde opposing Venus has us rewriting, restructuring, reconfiguring, and ideally transforming our partnerships. Now this is right, and our values and our finances. This is right after Venus conjuncted Jupiter last week. That is a really profound transit that happens once a year, but has not happened in the sign of Cancer, where Jupiter is considered exalted for at least 12 years. And it started a new chapter when it comes to growth within our finances, resources, possessions, self-worth, relationships, value systems. And now Pluto is like, okay, what kind of changes do I need to make? How can I transmute this? How can I alchemize this into something that is more aligned, something that is more nurturing, something that is more protective, something that feels safe and secure and has stability? Okay, so we talked about, so Venus is also in a square to Chiron. So there is a tension, conflict, struggle between our relationships, partnerships, marriage, values, and the healing within the self that needs to occur in order for the transformation we want in that realm, and the stability and the safety and the security to manifest. We have to work with Chiron, but this new moon is here to help us do so. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. We talked about that. And last one, Mars and Mercury. All right, so we have Mars here in Libra in a sextile to Mercury, working harmoniously with Mercury. Now, Mars in Libra is frustrated. Mars does not like to be in Libra. Mars really does not like to be in Libra. Mars is very will-driven. It's very focused on the self. It's angry. It's frustrated. In Libra is all about harmony and peace, not necessarily always, sometimes war, but harmony, and it's focused on the other. When Mars is in Libra, we can get really frustrated and ready to fight the other. Like in our partnerships, like we're just like, okay, what the fuck? Like we are not the normal peace and loving and self-sacrificing and keep the peace and pretend like everything's okay to make sure that everything stays harmonious. We're way more volatile and ready to fight the other if need be, especially if we feel like things are not fair or just or equal or balanced, in order to ideally bring about that equal and balance. Mars in Libra is striving towards balance and harmony. Of it's not fucking there, it doesn't want to pretend anymore, and it wants to take some sort of action to get there. And with Mars in the planet of aggression, rage, anger, fighting, action, drive, motivation, in a harmonious aspect to Mercury in Leo. Mercury in Leo is very expressive. It is letting you know what it thinks and what it feels. And being as though it is in a sextile to Mars, our mouths are very open and we are feeling very expressive, especially towards the things in our partnerships that are frustrating the fuck out of us and that we just can't take anymore. And that's really kind of where we're at. A lot of the intentions that are going to be set around this new moon can revolve around expressing the self in a way that perhaps gets heard, or taking actions that need to be taken in order to find a sense of harmony and stability and structure and nurturing and protection that maybe is lacking. All right, I think I talked about all the things I wanted to talk about. All right, I have some cards which are so aligned with energy. I pulled these cards before I dove into the yod. I knew the yod was there, but before I really dove into it or this concept at all, and the cards, of course, are just so on point. It's kind of ridiculous. Let me go over here. You guys, I'm dying. It's so hot. All right, so I pulled some cards. Of course, I pulled an archetype card from the archetypes deck. And then I pulled some cards from the Cosmic Oracle, which I have been using after it had been missing for a long time, and I forgot all about it. So the archetype card I pulled is the one, like high yod. Look, it's even like a little dot, like a little apostrophe. This is so the yod, even Virgo being a reflection of the one in its perfectness in the material world. And so this moon is striving us, it's pointing us towards developing that one, that source of oneness within the self, aligning with that energy within. We'll read this from the book, but I just want to cover these other cards first. And so these are from the Cosmic Oracle. One of the cards we got is one of the holographic cards, which are from the expansion pack. And it says, hidden powers. Cloaked by the sands of time, rediscover the healer in you. Hello, that is so Virgo. That is so the trine to Chiron. So yod aspecting all of the retrogrades. We're rediscovering, we're reassessing, we're tapping into the healer in us. Chiron in Aries, the self. Like, come on. It's so perfect. Look how pretty this card is, too. Hold on, let me get rid of this. Look at the hand of God. All right. And then the other card I pulled, it says Christ consciousness. So Virgo, the divine mother. And it's a quote from John Lennon, but this quote is also from the Gospel of Thomas. But I guess they're crediting John Lennon with it. And it says, the kingdom of heaven is within you. This is so Virgo. This is so the constellation Leo, the divine child. This is very much the divine mother, protecting that sort of consciousness that is prevalent within the current aspects. We're tapping into the healer. We're working through the sands of time, through the retrogrades to rewrite, restructure, reconfigure where we've been so we can move into where we're going in a more aligned fashion. And This card of Christ consciousness, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It is not something outside of you. If anything, that finger of God is pointing within. Virgo is all about finding a balance between the mind, the unseen, Pisces, and the body, and realizing that your body is your temple, and you are, just like the yod is part of all of the letters and all of the words and all of creation, you are a spark of self, and the kingdom of heaven is within you. Okay, let's read a little bit about the one. I'm so sweaty. Oh my God, I'm dying. Okay. The one. So this deck is broken up into the archetypal selves, like mother, father, the one. It's broken up into archetypal places like the forest, the mountain, and then it's broken up into like archetypal tools like the stone and the flame, and then it's broken up into archetypal initiations like gnosis and things like that. And so this is the final card of the archetypal selves. Much like everything merges back with the one in Pisces, the final sign of the zodiac, this holds all of the archetypes in and of itself, just like the yod holds all of the numbers and all of the letters within itself. Okay, so 121. You guys, I am literally melting. Oh my gosh. Okay. 121. The one. Non-duality, one love, and the unus mundus. So the unus mundus is the sun glyph. It is this right here, the circle with the dot in it, which, remember, is very much aligned with the yod, because that is the spark of all creation, and then the circle is the creation, right? Okay. Our ability... Our ability to experience this archetype firsthand is limited. It's shrouded in mystery, like the origin of the yod. It comes in brief and potent moments that we are left to savor for a lifetime. The one is both the energy that unites all living beings and our capacity to sense this intimate union. This archetype eludes us most of our lives, appearing as a concept in a distant galaxy, or a natal chart, or astrological chart, appearing as a concept in a distant galaxy, yet when we are in the midst of its power, a solemn reverence falls across all the land. We glimpse ourselves in the vastness of all consciousness, and we are neither small nor large within that field. We are neither important nor unimportant. All duality fades away, and we are left with what is, the precious knowing that life is a gift, and we are both the giver and the receiver of its fortune. It is said that Om is the primordial sound of the universe, and that all other mantras are born from it. Simply imagining this possibility will activate the one. I just pulled this card for like one of my clients I just had. If it was you, comment down below, because I swear I read this like a day or two ago. The unus mundus, the sun glyph, is a circle representing the unity of existence, the completion, the 10, right? Is it possible that the beginning and end of all things is love? And then the dot in the middle is that one. It's that source of that everything emanates from, just like the yod that everything emanates from, the hand of the divine, the spark of life within all things. When this card is evolved, it serves, hi Virgo, it serves, it loves, it accepts, it resonates. But in its lower archetype, it ignores, it omits, and it excludes. All right, guys, tap into that healer in you. Retrace your steps through the sands of time. We're in still retrograde energy. Things are being reassessed, reconfigured, reawakened, rediscovered, including the divine healer in you. And then really tap into that idea of divine consciousness and the idea of you being a part of it. Remember, we are God's eyes, we are God's hands, we are God's mind. We are emanations of the divine. Everything we see, even this fucking table, Everything we see is part of creation, including us. And the actions we make and the actions we do with our hands or with our mind or with our eyes are actions that the divine is doing. And so do them intentionally, live consciously and not unconsciously. All right? And do so by tapping into the kingdom of heaven within you. Virgo is all about like my body is the temple type of a thing, right? It has a lot to do with the body and the balancing of the mind, body, soul, and really realizing that like you are in a sacred temple and the body is just as important because it is a vehicle for this like sacred consciousness that everything is. But sometimes we can be living unconsciously, and so we're not tapping into like the higher octave of things, right? So it's a time of healing, and it's a time of like really profound divinity. All right, guys, I'm so hot. I need to go, I don't know, stand in front of the fan. All right, have a good one. And don't forget, eclipse readings are available. You want to know how all of this shit is impacting your chart, how eclipse season will impact you, how the month of September, which is going to be a big one. We also got an equinox right around one of the eclipses. It's going to be a big deal, especially if you have mutable placements. So book a reading and I'll tell you all about it. All right. My pens. My highlighter. All right. Have a good one and I'll see you next time. And if you're watching this over on YouTube, I'm going to unlock this for everybody. So if you're watching this over on YouTube, come over to Patreon so that you can get all of the videos like this. I do 2 of these a month, new moon, full moon videos, deep dives, multi-hour long. This is already at like 2 hours where we go into the depths and the like symbolic, esoteric, hidden dynamics of the chart in a plethora of different ways. And so if you found this interesting and beneficial and helpful and you would like more of this, come and find me over on Patreon. It's linked down below. It's a sliding scale. You can pay literally whatever you want. The lowest tier is like $3 a month. It's practically free. It's less than this coffee here. And you get access to everything. All of the tiers have access to all of the video content. It's like stuck there. Something like, I don't know what's going on with that to kind of fix it. Patreon's where it's at. And those of you who are already here on Patreon, I love you. I adore you. Thank you for letting me do this. Thank you for supporting me while I do this, helping me pay a couple of bills while I do this. I could not do this without you. And I adore you.